Okay, today's video is going to be about Scorpios. We are officially in Scorpio season, and I thought it'd be the perfect time to just talk about Scorpios, how they operate, what their motivations are, and just how they see the world. And of course, this does depend on different placements in that sign in your birth chart, so I will talk about some of those in this video. Okay, so Scorpio is traditionally ruled by Mars, which many of you know as the god of war, and Mars rules... Okay, I don't know if you can hear that dog. I'm gonna wait for it. Okay, so why is this dog barking? Okay, Mars operates very differently in the two signs that it rules. It rules Aries and it rules Scorpio. Mars, as embodied in Aries, is a lot more in your face, very direct, a lot more impulsive. There's a lot more speed, action, momentum, and that versus Scorpio, super different. So Scorpio being the other sign of Mars, or traditionally ruled by Mars, it's a lot more to do with warfare that has to do with distance, with stealth. It's maybe more so akin to like being a ninja or about being a sniper. Like those are some examples that people have thrown out in describing what Scorpio is like, especially opposed to its counterpart of Aries. Scorpios are very much about having a vantage point. There's that feeling of needing to protect oneself or whatever it is that you're guarding, and that's why Scorpios have so many different stereotypes associated with it, of being maybe like protective, of being suspicious. And that's because Mars, sort of like embodied in the sign, has a lot more to do with protecting yourself by keeping that vantage point, keeping a distance, and keeping an eye on targets from afar. It's really about knowing that there is a threat, so to speak, and needing to protect oneself from that. So that plays a lot into one. Scorpios are very protective, they're very secretive, and a lot of people describe Scorpios as being intense, maybe like brooding or like mysterious, or just into things that are like, you know, death, or just like really intense, just life experiences that a person can go through, really intense life experiences. So with Scorpio, there is just like, with a lot of different people who have placements in this sign, especially if it's like your sun sign or your moon sign or your rising sign, really prominent placements like that, it has a lot to do with having experienced things, maybe especially from a young age, or just really seeing the dark side of the world and how people can operate, and knowing that life really isn't all sunshine and daisies all the time. It's not going to be all rainbows and happiness. There really are going to be threats of pain. People may have witnessed, or just they may be attuned to like the existence of trauma and suffering in the world, or things that are scary, things that haunt you. Like Scorpios are just very all about that, and it's not something to be glamorized, right? Like, I think what people misunderstand about Scorpios is like there's such a price to pay for like that kind of awareness and like that kind of intensity. It's like not always comfortable, and Scorpios kind of like, they can thrive in that and sort of like use that to fuel like maybe their aesthetic or their view, seeing the world in a way that is creative. I mean, it really depends per sign, right? Every sign can be creative in terms of like taking what they see from the world and then like creating a worldview, creating art, or just like, you know, a personal expression in that way. With Scorpio, it's like the price that they had to pay was like often from a young age. Like they may have just seen like, you know, conflict growing up. They may have seen like, you know, things that feel like quote unquote warfare, and that is why Scorpios know like, look, you can't trust everyone. Not everyone is going to be on your side, and you do have to protect yourself. So when it comes to different like placements, especially, you can look at that and see like, okay, what does this like Scorpio placement like, if you look at it that way, like everyone cannot really be boiled down to one sign, right? But if you look at different facets of like personality or how people behave, you really have to look at, okay, what does that Scorpio person value, and like what are they trying to protect, right? So a lot of the time Scorpios are trying to protect like their personal truth, because they just know that, you know, people might judge, or it's just like they want to avoid a feeling of being exposed. Like they're very like, they can be very guarded. It can take different tests, like they might test you to see if you're worth them opening up and trusting you. So for I don't know, rising signs, sun signs, like that can be pretty general, and that can have to do with just how they see themselves as maybe like secretive, like I said, but the truth of it too is that like Scorpios actually want to be more vulnerable. Like Scorpios, like they may act like they have all these secrets, they don't want you to know things, but they're very much the type to like dangle that in front of you, and they'd be like, oh, like I have something but on my mind, and I just can't tell you though. It's like they're very much that kind of person where like they want you to dig, because actually Scorpios want to connect, but they're just really trying to find those connections that are worthwhile and that can really like enable a deeper connection. So people with their moon in Scorpio especially, like, y'all, I just want to talk, and I really feel for y'all, because I just feel like your inner emotions, there's so much like, I don't know if I want to say unrest, but it's because it's like there's such an intensity to that inner world, and it's very like, if you think just Scorpios in general are secretive, like people with their moon in Scorpio especially like have a wall up. Like you might not even know this, like you might think like, oh, like they're really pleasant with me and this and that, da da da. Scorpios can do that. They can put up a front like if they want to. A lot of the time it's just part of like maybe disguising themselves, again, part of those self-protective methods and coping mechanisms. But for people with the moon in Scorpio, like they especially, like if they feel like they might have a closer connection with you, or that something about your relationship might put them in a really vulnerable spot, like they might like clam up a bit. And it's not really necessarily anything to do with you. It's just like people with Scorpio placements can be afraid, again, of that deeper connection, even though they yearn for it at the same time. They just don't want anybody to use, you know, their deepest, darkest secrets, their really true like selves, and use that against them. Like they don't want anybody to have that ammo, and that's why they keep all these things and they sort of accumulate all these different like you know, painful experiences or vulnerabilities, like, and they just kind of keep that behind closed doors, because they want to keep it to themselves. They want to keep themselves in a position of safety and personal power. And to open that up, like you give someone that opportunity, this is how Scorpios see it, to, you know, really levy that against you and turn against you and prove themselves to be the enemy that you were always suspicious they would turn out to be. So the key with Scorpios is just like, I don't know, take time, be patient, show that you are honest with them. Like if you are kind of saying one thing and doing another, like Scorpios will definitely pick up on that. Like I think integrity is important to Scorpios, even though they themselves might want to maneuver a bit behind the scenes, just again to see if they can really test you, or not test you, well, I guess, yeah, to test you, but to see like if you are worthy again of their personal trust and of being in their close inner circle. I feel like Scorpios are the type to really like dabble in superfluous and superficial relationships. Like they really have like that tight like inner sanctum, and only a few chosen people are allowed to be in there. So if a Scorpio opens up to you, like that means something. Like they don't always do that for people, so don't take it for granted and don't be like blasé about it, and really show that you recognize and honor like the trust that they're putting in you. And I mean, that goes for everybody, right? Like you should always respect when people open up to you, but especially for Scorpios, because like that to them is like, is so sacred, and they just really require that deeper level of just trust and intimacy, and just in order to feel safe with you, which was really hard for them to do. One other thing that you have to know about Scorpio that is related to everything that I've said so far is Scorpio is the fixed sign in the water element, and that is especially why I was mentioning like emotions being important for Scorpio, and why that's something that they tend to guard pretty heavily, maybe even regardless of what their planetary placement is, although of course that does make a difference. One thing about them is just like, and especially with fixed signs in general, is like they want to go like all the way. I feel like they want to experience the fullness of something, and they want something deeper. Like fixed signs are not the type to just start something on a moment's notice. They're not the type to like go off of whims. Like they really want to find what they are devoted to, what they're committed to, and what's going to last. So I feel like with Scorpios, they are so much a part of that, you know, they're part of the fixed sign family. They really want to find those connections that I said, that I mentioned earlier, that are meaningful, that are are long lasting, that really reach into the deepest parts of you, and they want to see those deepest parts of you as well. Like they really are like searching for that soul to soul type of connection, that just intensity of experience, intensity of sensation. Like that can be such a strong thing for Scorpios, and that's a really a common way of viewing Scorpio energy, is them wanting to experience like just different or I guess not relationships, but like experiences to the fullest, but yeah, relationships as well. And so if you're looking for something that's more like lighthearted, and you are kind of like not the type to just like engage in deeper conversations, or you really are just not looking for that kind of like a vulnerability in your relationships, like it's gonna be pretty tough to like get close to Scorpio. Scorpio might not even want to, or they might want to. They might find that intriguing, actually, now that I think about it. But it may produce some difficulties and some tension in developing a deeper relationship with Scorpio, just because those beats are so different. But yeah, Scorpios do tend to be intrigued by mystery, because again, for Scorpio, if you think about the vantage point like of a sniper, of like a secret agent, or like a sniper trying to go in and infiltrate and like understand and expose secrets of their enemy, or of the other, you know, it doesn't have to be like an outright enemy, right? But just someone that they're in a tight relationship with, they really want to understand the other person. You know, and again, that has to do with like understanding like your enemy, or understanding the external world and other people, in order to, again, better protect yourself, or just better know how to maneuver and just navigate in the world. And so for Scorpios, like they're really going to maybe ask you those deeper questions, or going to ask you, yeah, just really personal questions, but they might not offer you that back in return. They're not necessarily going to reciprocate. If that frustrates you, that's totally understandable. Scorpios, why do you do this? Because, you know, you can't always just like expect total devotion and vulnerability and then not kind of like give that back in equal measure. For Scorpios too, they're also going to really analyze and pick up on like micro expressions. I feel like this is true for like a lot, like probably all the water signs to some extent. I just feel like they're so attuned to emotional energy, and part of that is like these little things that people will show in their reactions and their gestures. And I feel like Scorpios are just really perceptive like that, again, because that stems from those experiences where they've seen contentious experiences between people, and they just really have learned to hyperanalyze even like different interactions, because again, they want to make sure that things kind of go according to their plans. They kind of want to be in that seat of power and control. Again, why? For self-preservation and protection, and just to be able to do things the way that they want to do them. And so if you are very expressive, or you're hiding something, I mean, like regardless of whatever it is, like Scorpios are going to pick up on things pretty fast. I feel like Scorpios tend to be good judges of character, and if they feel like you are trustworthy, they will tend to open up more. It's like there is that side, but advice that I do want to give to Scorpios is like, not everything is going to have a hidden scheme or an agenda. Like, babes, like not everyone is out to get you. You know, you may have suspicions like, why does this person like me? Why are they asking me these things? Like, why do they want to know so much about me? And you know, like it could just really mean nothing. Maybe they just like you. Maybe you're a greater person than you think. I do think Scorpios can also be hard on themselves. Just again, really harsh or very intense internal world sometimes, and sometimes that can grate against them, especially when it comes to expectations that can't be achieved in reality. Sometimes that can happen with Scorpios, I feel like. So yeah, just my advice for Scorpios would be like, maybe just be in the moment and don't entertain that internal need to hyperanalyze everything, to really gauge someone from that lens of like suspicion and mistrust. I know that's definitely a thing. Again, if we always come back to that that image of like the sniper and being from afar and like having that bird's eye view, or someone on a castle tower and like with the arrows like ready to just strike at anybody who's trying to attack, like that's just so much of a key in terms of like understanding Scorpios and what motivates them and just how they handle things, especially when it comes to other people. And touching on other planetary placements in Scorpio, very briefly, I'm not going to cover like every single one. So another example of how a planet might operate in that sign, if we look at Mars in Scorpio, Mars rules that sign. So if it's placed in that sign in someone's birth chart, you know, Mars represents action, assertiveness, how someone goes after what they want. So if you've got Mars in Scorpio especially, you're going to be making moves and you don't necessarily want everyone to know every aspect of your game plan. Like, you're going to keep things tightly under wraps and you're going to feel like, look, why does anyone need to know what I want to do and how I'm going after it? Like, you're just going to keep that pretty tightly locked up because you're pretty ambitious in your own way and you just don't feel like everybody knowing about what you're going to do is going to be conducive to that. It might just actually detract from what you want to do and what your plan is. Like, that's at least going to be your point of view a lot of the time. And another example that I want to go into is Venus in Scorpio. So I definitely know quite a few people with Venus in Scorpio, and Venus does not do well in Scorpio because Scorpio is ruled by Mars, which is kind of like the opposite of Venus and what her job in general is, especially, you know, when it comes to a birth chart and maybe that facet of yourself that has to do with relationships, because that is such a big thing of, you know, of what Venus rules and has to do with. It is connecting. It's connecting with other people. And so Mars is God of War. Like, you're not trying to connect, you're trying to like beat the shit out of somebody or just fight an enemy or protect yourself, and it's not conducive to being in harmony and finding compromise, which is, you know, a lot of the time what Venus wants to do. So when you find Venus in Scorpio, like, especially when it comes to romantic relationships, like, these people want a ride or die. And if they get attached to you, like, they want a lot back. Like, they can actually get pretty, yeah, I'm trying to find a different word for like attachment, but they can just kind of have an intense feeling about you pretty quickly. If they're intrigued, then it's like they kind of want that attention back. Like, they want to know that you're it to them. I'm sorry, like, that's phrased wrong. They want to know that they are it to you, and that you are really all about this person, all for this person, totally committed. Again, even if they haven't showed you a promise that they're gonna give you that in return, it's because like they want that though. And actually, I will kind of go back on that, and I do think that when Scorpios have reached a certain point, they will give you that demonstration of how much they like you. It might be a lot. Like, if you're more of a lighthearted person, especially like if you're a Gemini or if you're just an air sign, like, that might not be your vibe, because Scorpio just like wants that deeper kind of like demonstration of total commitment and connection, because they're the types, especially with Venus and Scorpio, to be like, look, like, let's get tattoos of each other sometimes. Like, I'm just giving different examples. Obviously, like, this isn't every single Scorpio or every person with their Venus and Scorpio, but it's just like that kind of level of commitment, or they'll like want to run away with you and like if change like their identity with you. It's like that is just kind of an exaggerated example of like, you know, like, let's run away from the world and let's be together and let's just go as far as we possibly can in whatever this relationship has to offer. It's like, I don't know, it's just, I just imagine like blood oaths, like that kind of thing is like, if Scorpios could do that with you and like just could kind of like swear. I did this because I was imagining like when people like cut themselves, they're like, we're making a pact, like we're friends forever, or we're like, you know, lovers forever, and all of that. Like, there's a lot of that kind of like I don't know, I wanted to say like not gory romance, but just again, like a really intense romance. And it's like, if it's not going to be over the moon pleasure and bliss and that coming at a cost of a total sacrifice and devotion, then you know what, if it's going to be tragic, like, let it be tragic. I feel like Scorpio is kind of all about that that really strong balance, not balance, but just juxtaposition between the two, of things coming together and things, I don't know, like falling apart. And they're just so, yeah, fixed in that way, and they want to do things that just have that level of like life or death, like intensity sometimes, honestly. I don't know a better way to put it, but that's just kind of how they roll. So one thing to know about Scorpio placements, and especially Venus and Scorpio placements specifically, is that, you know, what I'm talking about, that total devotion, like they almost want like a total merging of the souls, and they want that level of fusion with someone else, where it's even more than like a soul to soul connection, but it's like there's this new entity, there's this fusion of us coming together, and they want that total surrender because they want just that absolute, just things to their absolute level. You know, when I talk about wanting that utter level of devotion, especially to compensate for relationships that they've been in or experienced where there wasn't enough commitment for them, where they didn't really see that harmony, or they didn't see people getting along, they didn't see people who were like committed to one another, is they really want to, again, compensate by reaching something to its absolute most intense, fullest levels, right? So when they're in relationship with someone, especially if it's a romantic relationship, they can want that feeling of like a soul to soul fusion where there's just a higher experience, and it's just like something that is just goes deep into the psyche, and they want you to bear your soul to them, and they also want to just, again, have that feeling of total surrender with somebody, and for them that's what they view as being worthwhile. And they really want that total level of devotion in that way. Again, someone opening up to them completely, whether that's emotionally or sexually. It's all those different things of just wanting that pure, totally potent level of sensation and experience and just fusion with someone else. And that is kind of to them what they view as maybe an ideal kind of connection, or just a strong, worthwhile connection, strong relationship worth having. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share about Scorpios today. I sprinkled in some advice, some explanations for those of you, especially like who don't have this energy in your chart and you want to better understand like individuals who do have prominent Scorpio placements. And, you know, I also did throw in advice for Scorpios, people with planets in Scorpio, just so you're aware, again, like not everybody has an agenda, not everybody has a scheme or is out to get you in some way, and that I'm trying to offer like the best advice I can in terms of like, can you ease up? Like, in what ways can you kind of relax a little bit, and be a little bit more willing to trust or see the good side of someone instead of jumping to conclusions that come from like, you know, your internal pessimism about what human nature is like, just because you have seen the dark side, you have seen the shadow side of what people can do to others. So again, it's always like this motivation to shield yourself from harm, and sometimes that can, you know, prod you, compel you to act in ways where like you want to be in power, maybe even a little bit more so like more in control of a situation than the other person that you're involved with. And again, like this is an encouragement to kind of even that out and try to find that balance with someone else so that you are on the same level playing field, so to speak. And I also offer advice to just be gentle with yourself if you have things that you need to heal from. I do think that Scorpios can tend to feel a little bit more alone sometimes, just because they know that not everybody gets along. They have, again, seen relationships turn bitter, and just turn for the worse. And so Scorpios know that when you connect with people, don't expect it to all go to shit, but then also don't place so many expectations on others, as an attempt to compensate for all the times in the past when you felt like, you know, other people didn't provide what you wanted or what other people wanted. You know, if you were younger and you saw like relationship models where like, you know, there was a lot of fighting, or people were like really vicious to each other, for example. Like, don't expect someone to give you total commitment as a way of like compensating for that when there wasn't enough safety, there wasn't enough trust or commitment to one another in those early relationship models. So again, watch for when you like expect the world of someone just because like you've experienced things where it felt like your world was ripped from you, if that makes sense. So again, be aware of just what your expectations are like, and know that not everybody is going to be seeking that same level of experience or a relationship that you are, and that level of intense commitment. Like, people may view commitment in different ways, or they may have different love languages from you, and just know that it doesn't have to be like all on your terms in order for it to mean something, in order for it to be you know, a mutually fulfilling and just loving relationship with someone else. Okay, so that's pretty much everything that I can kind of think of right now in terms of what people generally misunderstand about Scorpios or don't really get about them. And so if you have any more questions or if any of you have more insights to share, I'd love to hear them. Feel free to leave a comment and also make sure to subscribe as always for more videos. I have different videos already available, obviously. I do a lot of intuitive readings and all of that. I do tarot, so feel free to check that out. And if you want to book a reading as well, I do have that available. I'm going to put that link somewhere here, maybe. But I hope you all are doing super well, and I hope this video helped. Feel free to reach out and take care.